Ooh. Podcast is R&B. That stands for Rhythm Blessings. Thanks for listening to me. Podcast on a Sunday morning, and I don't know what it be. Beautiful morning. Happy Saturday. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man. Good morning.
Good to see you.
Part of the early bird crew this morning, trying to figure out what our thoughts are like in the AM.
Yeah, this is the first time we recorded at this time. It's like a 12-hour difference from when we usually record. So the vibrations might be a little bit higher. We'll see where it takes us. I'm a morning person. It's been difficult for me working a night shift.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to day shift next month, so I'm excited for that. But welcome to R&B, Rhythm and Blessings with Russ and Blake.
I'm Russ, feeling very blessed to be awake this morning and here with my brother Blake. And I think that this is a good moment because overall we talk about just trying to have maximum productivity in our lives. So to get up and get to the grind before you have more grind or possible, I know Blake, you're going to be hanging out with your parents later.
Yeah.
That's still, an integrated thing in your life, like getting to the work and then maximizing your relationships that have you feeling more blessed out here.
Mm-hmm. And the power of having a routine. And if this could be my routine, like getting up, podcasting, working out, and then spending time with my family, then I'll die a happy man. So,
For sure.
There's a lot to come from having structure in your life and having positive habits. And how you start your day can very much determine what your level of success or, I guess, productivity is going to be.
For sure.
I would assume you have some sort of routine, a daily routine that you follow.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm at my best when I get up early. I'm a bookworm, so I like to try to figure out some different type of thing to read. And it could be so unrelated to what I'm going to go do that day. I might just some random topic and read about it for a little bit and then stretch.
Yeah.
Try to get my food, and get moving. I realized that when I do that, I start my day with much more rhythm and everything just flows.
Definitely. The basis of my routine is starting with that rhythm in my day, and I love to stretch and start off with my coffee and get my breakfast and my water and read in the morning when I can. Sometimes I read later in the day, but when I can really follow that routine, which is not every day for me because I work the night shift and my routine's kind of all over the place right now. I would say 99.9% of the time have a wonderful day when I'm able to follow that routine. And there's certain aspects of the routine that I really appreciate. Like the stretching is beneficial to me mentally and physically and spiritually, I would think, because I tend to meditate while I'm stretching as well. And those are just things that I've grown to really appreciate at this stage in my life.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And if you're listening to us right now and you're in bed trying to figure out what next move you're going to make, just get up. Just get up and make one move. Maybe one hamstring stretch might lead you to the next hamstring, and then you can follow that into the rest of your day and possibly create what it is that you want if you do it enough times in a row.
Yeah, that's the first step. It's hard for people to get out of bed.
For sure.
Yeah, especially at this hour. But if you do it, you'll feel better and you'll do better.
For sure. And we talk about value a lot. Everybody wants to be a millionaire. Everybody wants to be a billionaire. Those people are up early. Those people are up getting to it, figuring out what they need to do and making sure that they have their P's and Q's. Check.
I don't want to be a billionaire.
Like, not like Sean Kingston. Why not?
Because I don't need to be a billionaire.
True.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't need to? Yeah, because right now your current level of like bills and everything aren't necessary for you to have that much.
Well, yeah, right now I can pay my bills. I'm not a millionaire. I have certain goals,
Mm-hmm.
very concrete goals, and expectations for my lifestyle and how I can help people. And I think when I get to the point where I'm able to help people to the capacity that I know I can, and that I'm so eager to be able to do, I won't be able to be a billionaire.
Mm. That's very interesting because, Bill Gates would say, he's the epitome of philanthropy. And
Yeah, he would. But if Bill Gates wanted to, he could have $500 million,
and
and
do more, you think,
yeah, he
to
could
help?
he could feed the world. He could feed the world if he wanted
Yeah,
to.
if he scaled
It's
back on
not
what
it's
his
not his
personal.
responsibility to do that,
Sure.
but if he wanted to live below his means to that extent, he could.
Yeah, the rest of his money could be given to that
Yeah.
effort.
And I think I could be perfectly happy with $500 million versus 100 billion.
And that's an interesting, talking about philanthropy on a scale, because it sounds like you want to be able to help people on a more personal level, where it
I
doesn't just take like $1 billion care package to say I helped you. It's like, no, I want to be able to really be felt, my energy really felt in your life if I'm helping you.
I feel like that's what I do now is help people on the personal level, but that's within my capabilities currently. So I would be down to be that billionaire philanthropist and have that grand scale influence on the world, but that that takes a lot of sacrifice to get to that point. You
Does.
know, we don't see the journey that people go on to become billionaires. And then, like I said, once you get to that point, is all that money gonna go into your pocket, or is it gonna become something that you reinvest, or is it gonna be something that you use to help people?
Yeah. And also, how are you going to give the mindset, right? There's all those old stories, like in the book The Richest Man in
Babylon,
Babylon,
yeah.
right? They talk about how there's a father with two sons, and he gives them either the tablet, which is just the information on how to use your money, and the other son, he just gives the money.
Yeah.
Right. And the
Yeah.
one with the tablet always is the one that does better. And
Right.
as I'm thinking about building my capital and then passing it on, it's like I'm trying to develop a way where I can also pass on the mindset that comes with how to use this tool, so it doesn't become detrimental to you.
Yeah.
And so you can just enhance it and pass off another tablet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I feel like I'm doing with my self and my lineage.
Yeah. So right now, this is our tablet, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Tablet.
So we're over here chiseling, making our mark. You know, back to the financial piece. If I would love to have an influence on education. I think that we should be ashamed of how we prioritize education because it's so important. And for kids up until the age of 18, the most developmental years, those need to be enjoyable for kids, and the joy for education has to be established because it's not hardly ever going to be established later in life unless kids end up going through something that helps them realize the value of education. But if you can just instill those values early on, that's so crucial. And so that's something that I think of when you can have an influence as far as giving the tablet and using your platform. And our tablet right now is this, but if there was that level of finance that you talk about, you can be handing out all forms of tablets and teaching people in different ways and spreading those values in different ways, and again, not just giving them the money or giving them what they're asking for, but teaching them how to get it.
Yeah.
And we're students of life. My dad is in town, like you said, and he told me, be humble in this journey of us speaking on these things because we don't know what we don't know. And we don't want people to think that we're out here trying to be gurus. We're just sharing our understanding and our experiences in a way that we can hopefully provoke thoughts in people that are going to be beneficial not only to them but to the people that they interact with in the community. And being able to have that type of influence on people, I think, is extremely valuable. And a lot of people don't realize that they have that level of influence.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody wants to be an influencer nowadays, but they don't really see the gravity that comes with that. And, I have had times where people will make assumptions a little bit, and I have to, step back and make sure that the way that I'm portraying myself is not in a way that is making it seem like I'm trying to be something that I'm not. Because I had someone ask me once, like, "Oh, do you still have that Mercedes?" And I was like, "What? I've never had a Mercedes. What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, well, you had that car in that video that you posted." I was like, "Oh, like that dude owns my gym." Like,
Yeah.
I was not trying to make it seem like that was my car, because some people will pose next to a car and make it seem like that's their car. That was not my intention, but then here it is, like somebody thinking that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that was a weird thing for me.
Yeah, like the slightest confusion.
Yeah.
Come into the biggest belief.
Because people draw conclusions very quickly, and there's people out there that are doing those kind of things.
And I think that that's our benefit in this journey, because I totally agree with your dad. Like, we have to stay humble. And both of us in our own daily life without the microphones and doing our podcast, we're influential in what we do. So it's almost like this is just an extension of the true work that we put in this world as a way to just kind of document. And for me, and I'm sure for you, help us grow and gain more awareness with how we communicate. And then on top of that, we already have the thirst for education and the thirst to have those conversations. So you're talking about like, as people get older, it becomes harder and harder.
Yeah.
I think what turns someone back on is when they go down a rabbit hole of like YouTube information or clips, and they see some old wise archetype talking about this thing that resonates within them, and then they go on to Amazon and they order some book, or they go to their local bookstore and find something that just starts them on a path, and then it's like a domino effect. And then ultimately what we're just trying to do is like raise that consciousness vibration, so then we can all truly feel like we're one. But you could lose yourself in that. So that's why it's like, I'm not saying it like quickly. It's not a big serious thing.
Like you said, a rabbit hole.
For sure.
Yeah.
And if you start to get gratification for what you're doing, sometimes you can mistake if it's from your soul or from your physical, right? I mean, we watch people who never had a following start posting pictures and gain a following, and then that becomes their identity.
Yeah. Very quickly. You have to be careful what you feed yourself, what you feed your mind, what you feed your body, basically what you feed your senses, what you feed your ears, right? So as you guys listen to us, you have to determine, like, are we trustworthy? Are we the type of vibrations that need to be coursing into your ears on a daily basis or a weekly basis, however often we give you the opportunity?
Yeah, I'm probably going to give a lot of pushback if you say we're not, because the reason is because I watched a bunch of traumatic and, detrimental content flow through our community and get all the likes and impressions that there is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, if two young men can't sit down and talk about positivity and talk about, how we are just trying to create tablets and formulas to be able to pass with our capital, how can you be mad about it?
I don't know, but I'm interested to see how someone tries to be mad about it.
Please let us know.
Because you can't be accepted by everyone.
No,
that's the fact of the matter. Like, I've met people that don't like the concept of loving everybody. And they're like, why? How is that possible? I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't really know how it's possible to hate everyone either, but some people are like that. So I think for me to try to do the opposite is completely within reasonable means. But there's always going to be resistance to what you try to do. There's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be pushback. That doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to put in the effort for what you believe is right or what fulfills you. Once you find your purpose, once you find your interests, and once you find what you love and who you love, you put effort and energy into those things on a consistent basis, and you'll be a lot more satisfied with yourself, and that's how you develop self confidence. That stems from self love, and everything that you do to yourself, you will continue to do to the people around you and to your environment, and you'll foster that kind of aura and that energy that other people will feel and return the favor to you. So I think we should talk about how we feed our senses. Would you say that you have a good diet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be better, but I think that without going too extreme, I do a good job of just putting things in my body that are good for me. Yeah.
Hold that jug up right there.
Yes.
You drink one of those every day?
Yeah, at least one.
All right.
For sure.
That's a staple to what you're putting into your body, right? We live in Arizona, a very dry place. We live in the middle of the desert. You have to stay hydrated anywhere. And I feel like the water that you put into your body is similar to the information that you put into your mind, like how it flows through and stays hydrated. And a lot of people don't hydrate or feed their minds on a regular basis. And I hope that we're able to stimulate people to want to do that more often, because I think that's how we understand each other, and that's how we have empathy and are able to show love.
For sure. And there's some information out there that's so potent. I would challenge people to not just write off some of these old historic documents that are religious documents like the Bible or even different ones. I mean, I like to read a lot and study a lot of different cultures. So like I've read the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching, the Bible, the Quran. I like to take in this information because it's been put through the test of time and it's very potent.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of almost like you're drinking water. It kind of hydrates you and then shows as you're doing in the world, you start to see that your perception is reaching back to that book that you were reading. And it's like, whoa, this was talking about maybe some fundamental principles in reality that are here, and you'll find a lot of similarities through a lot of these books.
Yes. And like you said, fundamental principles, the concepts across those different religions and those different texts are very, very similar. And there's a reason for that, because there's truth that lies within those concepts, and people get so caught up on the religion and the superficial portions of all of those different beliefs and the different types of people that tend to belong to those religious groups, rather than looking at the concepts and the moral values and what they stand for. Because if they looked at that, there would be so much more unity, because they would find the similarities and be able to relate to each other and understand each other more.
Yeah, and give respect to the time, right? Well, you might get a bottle of wine and be like, wow, this is 20 years old. It's resilient and it's been able to grow through this time, and now I'm going to ingest it. Well, some of these documents and books are 4,000 years old, and they made it to 2023 with you. That should be amazing to you. Like, how did this organized document become to still have relevance this long?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, a lot of those texts are hidden and not widely shared and understood and read also. So you kind of have to dig for some of that information, and there continues to be value there, though, and there's strength in history. I used to not like history in school. I was more a science and math guy, and history kind of bored me. But there's a lot of power in history. When we talk about history, sometimes we just talk about like the past 400 years, right? But there's so much that extends beyond that, in BC times, and there's still people, very relevant powerful, knowledgeable, loving individuals that deserve to be recognized, and their texts are there, their thoughts are there, their information is there.
Yeah.
So,
And they had less distractions and the same goal, which was to learn about themselves and figure out how to develop more freedom and develop more autonomy and more peace in their life. So as they're just studying their mind and studying their environment and then passing it on for generations and generations to keep honing that information, well, they're eventually going to have something that really means a lot.
yeah,
And where we're at now is no happenstance. Like, we're here now because we have been able to use past knowledge and wisdom
right.
to get us to this point.
It's compounding information over generations and generations, and that's why it's so important to develop as much as you can while you're here, because that is your legacy. It's building upon your knowledge and sharing that knowledge, right?
Yeah. And reaching back. You know, you can reach back to move forward. That's the dopest part about all of this. You know, it's like we're not just left hanging by ourselves. We're not here without a lifeline, so to say. You're here with all types of lifelines. We just got to learn how to pick the phone up and call it, as a metaphor, right? We need to learn how to tap into our lifelines to get that support.
Definitely. If you were able to choose one of the five senses that you were able to not have diminish over time,
Yeah.
what would that be?
I think it would be my hearing. I would want to keep my hearing as crisp as it can for a long time. And the only reason I say that is because I love sounds, you know?
Yeah.
I love listening to frequencies. I love listening to music. I love listening to rivers and silence, going to the top of a mountain and just listening. Like, I feel like my ears have been able to tap me in, and I use that sense to kind of get into a very peaceful place. So that's one thing. I'd be down to lose my sight. You know what I mean? I can imagine everything I need as far as taste goes. Like, as long as I'm full, I feel like I'd be okay. Touch, it's like I'm not. It doesn't really seem that important to me.
I think that I would want my sight.
Yeah.
You can read music.
Mm.
I can play music in my head. Like I often am thinking of songs or beats in my head.
Yeah.
And there's something relaxing about going outside and looking at the blue sky and seeing nature and plants and growth and seeing people smile. You know, it's a hard question.
Yeah, and I love that question because it is. You know, it's you like to see people. Go ahead.
I just ask it to, promote gratitude and appreciation, because you start to think about not having those senses. And there are people living amongst us that don't have their senses. And it's something that we take for granted. And we don't see how it plays a role and how it's really precious, because it's not there forever, just as many other things we have in our life are not there forever. So I think a good way to be content with yourself is appreciate those little things you have that we don't always think about other people not always having the opportunity to experience.
Yeah. And using those senses while you have them to grow and expand. It's funny because you look at the stories of like the ancient Egyptians and how they believed their walk into the afterlife went. They believed that, that sun god Ra, they believed that when they passed away, there was like this window of opportunity to go into this light that put them into this other afterlife. And they were preparing for that their whole lives, right? Using their senses to just try to heighten their consciousness and tune to a higher vibration. So while you do have the ability to use these senses, I believe that you should develop a practice with them It's funny because I heard Nipsey Hussle in an interview talk about how he used a sound bowl every single morning before he started doing any of his creative work. He would sit there with a sound bowl.
Yeah.
And I'm saying things like, bro, Nipsey Hussle, known Crip, known gangster rapper, also known intellectual, but so many things that are kind of like a dichotomy in his personality. But he used these
Known
like
businessman.
known businessman, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Known optimist. He used sound to center himself every morning,
Yeah.
right?
And had a high level of success as a result.
And a lot of people like think like, well, that's not gangster. You know, that doesn't represent the image that they want to show us as a rapper, but it represents someone who is tapping into their senses to try to expand their consciousness.
And him having that appreciation for sound allowed him to create great music, which other people felt his vibration and his rhythm through what he created, which was a product of what he learned and what he was able to appreciate.
Yeah. And throughout history and even currently, there's cultures that use like chanting and mantras to tap into a deeper experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like right now I'm holding a mudra. Have you heard mudra? So there's certain hand positions that you can rest in, and people use them when they meditate or when they speak. It's supposed to keep you centered and keep you focused and keep you relaxed. One thing that I find it's interesting when you learn about hormones and the peaks and valleys of certain times of the day. Us having a conversation in the morning time, your cortisol peaks in the morning, and then also coffee can increase that peak, and there's valleys of that cortisol level in the evening, so people tend to be more relaxed in the evening time. So I can see even with our conversation, I'm not anxious, but I feel a different energy within me versus when we speak in the evening time, which we typically do.
Same. Like right now, because I know that I have my day in front of me. I know that I have like work to do, and I know that I have more demands that are going to be put on me. I'm feeling like I'm still in my like hunter mode. I feel like I'm still in my I gotta go out here and get it mode. But in the nighttime, I'm in my big relax, like good job. This is the winner circle vibe. It's funny because I go through that like every single day. I go from waking up and feeling like a hunter to like relaxing in the afternoon and feeling like I'm in a winner circle with the people I love. And I want to keep doing that throughout my life. I never want to lose feeling like a hunter in the morning, and I never want to lose knowing who I want in my winner circle in the evening.
And that's the value of starting your day early, because if you only, or not only, but you feel more like a hunter in the morning, if you're waking up at 11 a.m., you hunting for an hour out of the day. How you going to eat?
You know, hunt is finished.
The hunt's done. All the food's taken up. You know, they say the early bird catches the worm. You wake up at 5 a.m. You can accomplish so much, and you can still have time to relax and enjoy your day too. It's all about productivity and consistency, and that's what separates people in a journey. And we have a very competitive society we live in. A lot of people have the same goals and aspirations, want the same things. And the people that are able to value and appreciate their time and use it to their advantage. Some people think that time is a constraint and a disadvantage, like there's not ever enough time, but those are people that don't use their time wisely, or don't use it as efficiently anyway, because everyone needs time to relax. You know, we have to take a break mentally. We have to sleep. We have to rest and digest. But when you choose to do that, makes a big difference. Are you going to rest in the front end of the day and cram all of your activities and tasks in the evening? Or are you going to get everything done and then be able to relax and ease into the nighttime? You know, how you structure your day is very important. And that's why I, again, talk about routine and the value of that, because that is really what establishes the environment to be able to live that type of lifestyle.
And when you feel like your perspective is that time is a constraint rather than a tool, I believe that once you get to closer to the end of your time, you're going to be more anxious, right? Because when we hear these stories about what people's deathbed, when people interview people on their deathbed and they ask them, what would you have done differently? Everyone's is like, I would have took more risks. I would have tried to chase my goals because why didn't I? Everyone says that. Well, if you're not using your time as a tool early on, as you see it diminishing, it's going to be way more tough to reckon with the fact that you're about to leave this earth. I want to get to the end of my life and be like, yo, I squeezed this lemon till there was no more juice left. You feel me? Like I squeezed it, there was nothing left, and like I'm just, ready to transition.
That is a fantastic metaphor because you can squeeze the lemon out, get all the juice, make as much lemonade as you can, or you let that lemon sit there and it'll rot. And it never gets used.
Yeah.
And goes to waste.
And you're saying they're thirsty. Look at you, thirsty.
Look at you, thirsty. There's a certain point in your life, and we don't ever know when this point is. You can guess, so you're midlife, but there's a certain point in your life where your life is getting shorter, like your time is getting lesser and lesser in comparison to what you've already experienced. And that can be very, very troubling, unsettling. I think that people need to rewire their minds in relation to death. I don't remember if we've already discussed this or not on the podcast, but I've had many, many, many patients tell me, don't get old. It sucks. And then I ask them, what's the better option? Well, I don't think the alternative is much better than getting old. Getting old is an accomplishment. Getting old is something that a lot of people don't get to do.
Yeah.
And I think aging is a blessing. So there's things that come with aging that aren't as desirable, but that's because that's what society tells us we should be prioritizing. But really, if you spend that aging process improving your mind and building upon your skill sets and gaining assets and helping people and developing relationships, then there's not much to be sad about in that process. You might not be able to run as fast or jump as high, but why is that really necessary?
Yeah, and the reason is, I believe, is because you're an extension of this universe, right? There's nothing that you're made of that doesn't exist here, right? We're made of the same materials that the stars are made out of and the earth that you walk on. So I believe that as you get older, you're watching yourself just grow as that extension. Right. Rather than taking the ego perspective and being like, oh my gosh, my time is running out for me to be legendary.
Yeah.
Nah, you're already one with everything the moment you got here. Right? Your only goal is to either have gratitude for that process or to hate on it.
Yeah. We underestimate the complexity of our bodies and how amazing it is that we're able to sit here and have these conversations and drive cars and do very simple things that we take for granted. To have a brain and a heart and lungs and a circulatory system, all those things to work together in an efficient manner on a daily basis is completely amazing. To develop from an embryo is completely amazing. And if you don't appreciate those things, maybe you don't understand the complexity of them, but down to a cellular level, and then down to the, like you said, the very basic compounds that the rest of the universe is made of: oxygen, nitrogen, all the hydrogen, carbon. Those things coming together to create different objects are just so we can operate as one.
Yeah.
Because we are one and the same.
And it's funny, we are. And you talk about how, we start as an embryo. We really start as an idea.
Yeah.
We started as an idea in our parents' minds.
Yeah.
An idea, which is always crazy to me because it's like, bro, that's really the conception of you. It was a thought about an action.
Yeah.
And as we know, our thoughts are in narrative form. So really, it's a word. Now, I'm going to make a connection to the Bible in Genesis at the beginning. It says, in the beginning was the Word. So if literally your beginning was a thought in narrative form that was a word, and in the Bible it's saying in the beginning was the Word, then I think we should take very seriously these words that we're using to put in our mind and that we're using to create the world around us, because our word is our creation.
There you go.
You could ask any really great Kendrick Lamar, any great hip hop artist, that word creates your reality.
Right.
It's funny, I heard Lupe Fiasco in an interview one time say he wishes he would have not named himself Lupe Fiasco because the power of his words are so heavy. He was creating catastrophe in his life because he called himself Lupe Fiasco. He said if he could go back, he would call himself Lupe $100 million because he's like, I don't want to create fiasco in my life, and this is what I keep calling myself. So that's a powerful thing, what you call yourself. You know, are you calling yourself abundant? Are you calling yourself peaceful? Or are you just calling yourself a slave in the N-word? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what you're calling yourself is creating what you have and who you are.
Are you calling yourself anxious? Are you calling yourself depressed? What are you labeling yourself as other than you? You know, because you have to understand that you are just a being who is in this world being a human. You're a human being. So we put all these other stamps and titles on ourselves, and that can really be whatever you want it to be. And that's how you become who you want to be. But people label themselves in a negative manner and then ride with those labels throughout their whole lives and don't think that they can break away from those labels or ever be anything else.
And then they try to pass the label off to their descendants. Instead of passing off a tablet and some capital, they pass off trauma, right? And negative labels. And
you talk about creation starting as a thought, which are words. Our thoughts are words. That's how we process them. So that's translated into our DNA and what we pass down as well. Our children learn our words and our thoughts and our feelings, and that's how we teach them about the world. We teach them about emotions, and we teach them how to think. You know, we teach them what they should think of themselves initially, but you should grow them into something, a human to try to process their own thoughts and emotions, not rely on what someone else is telling them. But kids have to develop that ability, and they only really know what we teach them.
For sure. And to recognize the divinity that is inherently inside of them. It's like, I'm going to get you to the point where you just have more faith in what's going on. And then it's going to be up to you and your own individual process to grow into the archetypes that you're supposed to be. You know, but I'm going to protect you until you get to the point where, you know, in my belief, God takes over.
And that shouldn't be a burden to walk along that journey. And a lot of people are scared to venture out and learn those things on their own, and to make mistakes. You know, you have to have failures. You have to experience life. Failures don't always have to be traumatic and difficult, you know, and your lessons that you learn don't have to be traumatic and difficult either. You can learn from other people's mistakes, which is something that I would suggest you try to do if you don't. But you will experience pain. A lot of life is difficult. I think there's a balance of good and bad. You know, this morning I dropped all my blueberries on the floor. I feel like that's my bad for the day. I'm like, oh, you know, sometimes there's little bad things that happen that aren't really that bad. I can think of a certain point in my life where that would have really upset me and kind of thrown my whole day off. But I have so much to look forward to. I knew I was about to do this, and I'm going to spend time with my family later. Forget them blueberries, you know, whatever. Like, if that's the worst thing that's going to happen in my day, cool, whatever. But it can't all be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. Like, there's real life stuff that we deal with. And one that you mentioned earlier is death. You know, we can't escape the reality of death. And it's very hard for us to talk about, but it's something that we all experience ourselves, but also with each other and then within our families and within within our community. We see public figures that die. And that's something that we don't really like to process or discuss. We mourn and we get sad that people are gone, but we don't really talk about that dying process and how to grieve properly and what it means to live a meaningful life and share your legacy and make plans in a way that are going to make people more at peace when you pass, because there is a lot of chaos that can happen when someone passes away. But if there's adequate preparation, it doesn't have to be that way. So I'd like to use this as a little public service announcement. Are you familiar with like advanced directives?
I know what they are. I don't have any set up.
And that's okay. I don't either. So again, when we talk
what
about
are they though? So
no, I'll say that, but I'm just gonna say again, when we talk about certain things on this podcast, it's reminders for us too, things that we can be better at and improve upon to make our situation and our lives better. So advanced directives are something that all adults should really be looking into completing, including myself and my family. It's your decision making basically. If you're in a medical situation where you can't make decisions for yourself or you are going to pass away soon, an advanced directive is basically saying, do I want CPR performed on me? Do I want to be intubated? Do I want to get put on a ventilator for X amount of time? Do I want to receive tube feedings if it's necessary? You can basically determine all of the medical procedures that you are okay with being done to you if that situation were to arise. And so a good thing to have with an advanced directive is a medical power of attorney, who is an individual who you would designate to help make decisions that may not be covered in your advanced directive. And then you don't have to just go through the legal process of who in your family is technically in charge of you based off of your lineage and stuff like that. And getting those things in place can save your family a lot of stress. And we don't like to talk about the fact that we might have bad things happen to us. You might get hospitalized, like you could die. And we don't know when that's going to happen. And so if we plan for the inevitable, it's not saying that it's going to happen next week, but you can have this in place now and you can alter it later in time if you need to, because things change, but it's in place. And then 50 years down the line, when something does happen, your family doesn't feel guilty about decisions that they've made for you. And they know that you're at peace with what's going on because it's your decision. And I tell my patients that when you're in the hospital, you have the autonomy and this is your body. You have the right to say no to things. We're here to help you and make suggestions with our knowledge and give you our expertise and try to help you in every way that we can. But at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with something, you can say no. And so this is giving you the opportunity to say yes or no when you physically are not capable. Yeah. So I want people to be aware of that because, again, it's something that I need to do. And I suggest you do it, too, because it helps a lot. And I've seen very stressful situations when people have not taken the initiative to get those things completed ahead of time.
Right. Have you ever seen people in the hospital that are trying to make decisions solely based off how much money it's going to cost, like them or their family? If they...
Not recently, because the hospital that I currently work at, it's not everybody, obviously, but I have a lot of wealthier patients.
Okay.
Like I take care of a lot of CEOs and ex-scientists and retired doctors and things like that pretty frequently. And those seem to be the people who are more open to talk to me about like financial things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But at my old hospital, I had some sad cases where people did feel like they shouldn't continue to try because they knew they wouldn't live very long and they felt like they were just increasing the burden that their family would have.
That sounds like such a difficult place to be in when you're like, I might be able to make this, but I cannot afford, or we can't afford
Yeah.
if this thing becomes too much
Yeah.
for us to handle. Oh,
And it happens a lot. Our healthcare system is tough,
mm,
and the health insurance is ridiculous
mm-hmm.
for everybody. Even me as a nurse, I was just talking to my mom yesterday. Like, I pray for a day where healthcare providers can get some type of break in terms of their health care, because I don't know how nurses get in a situation where they're in six-figure debt because they had an accident or got sick, when we're exposed to so much
Yeah.
disease and radiation, and it doesn't make sense to me. But it's not fair to anyone to have to pay $100,000 to have their illness taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
or have to pay several $1,000s a month for medications that they're taking. It's nuts. So I understand when people have those concerns, and people have asked me in the past, like, well, how much would that cost? And that's not something that I know as a nurse. I don't see their bills,
Yeah.
and I don't even want to see their bills, because after having a baby and seeing those numbers, it's crazy. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So to see these people that are in and out of the hospital several times a year because of their chronic illnesses, I can only imagine how much of a financial burden that is, and it's very concerning that so many people have to deal with that, because it really takes one hospitalization. It can ruin your life financially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a very hard hole to get out of, especially if you have nothing when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those people die with crazy amounts of debt that there's no way they can ever pay off.
Yeah.
So I realize there's a few things that I am like very afraid of. And one is spiders. I have arachnophobia. The other is being hospitalized. I'm extremely afraid of being hospitalized because I've seen what it can do to people.
Mm.
And I do a lot of things to take care of myself, I think, secondary to that fear.
Mm-hmm. I understand that.
So I exercise regularly. I try to eat good. I probably have like a 80-20 split. I believe in that theory that, everything's good in moderation. And if 80% of your diet's healthy, then having 20% slip around is okay. I'm probably closer to like 90%, to be honest. But do you take any like supplements, vitamins, or anything?
Yeah, I'll take vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and fish oil pills. And every now and then I'll do like collagen.
Nice,
Like,
nice.
you know,
That's a good lineup.
yeah.
I only ask because I used to work at GNC in college, and then through personal training, I've done a lot of research on supplements and help people kind of choose what they were going to try. Um, a lot of supplements that I've used, like protein powders or pre-workouts and BCAAs and stuff, I've had good results from, and then later on, like, actually looked at the ingredients label, and there's all these chemicals and crazy stuff in there that people don't really understand that they're putting into their bodies, because on the front in the label they say that it's going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's for this, but they don't really disclose all of the other information. So I ask you that because it sounds like you use mostly like single ingredient supplements, right?
Yeah.
It's not all grouped into one.
Nope.
So I think that that's a smart thing to do, because there's less to add in that way. When you get these proprietary blends where there's all these things into one, there's often these little sneak ingredients in there. So when you have a very simplified ingredient base, that's ideal. That's optimal for supplementation. And then also, when you're even trying to get a protein powder or something, I would just look at that ingredient label. Anything you eat that comes out of a package, you should look at the ingredients label, because you should be cognizant of what you're putting into your body, and don't just trust that label, because there's a lot more than what's on the front. The back shows you everything that you're putting into your body, and that's very important for people to be thinking about, because again, what you feed yourself is similar to how you feed your mind. You want to control what you're putting into your ears, what what you're exposing to your sight and what you're feeling emotionally is going to be a result of how you feed yourself and how you process things, because you have to digest after you feed.
Yeah. I think that that's such a great point. I keep thinking back to how you were saying in your current hospital that you work at, you usually are looking after people who are wealthier and they'll have more conversations about finances. One thing about our growth is that obviously in school, finances aren't a huge topic. So it's really up to your family to kind of educate you on finances. And I've learned that a lot of people are very afraid to start trying to have a conversation about finances because that's like their weakest subject when it comes to what they know and how they know how to grow. Right. And we're talking about how we want to create these tablets to be able to pass on so people know kind of how to deal with the finances and not let them diminish their lives. But I feel like that those end of life conversations, or when people are at their most vulnerable talking to you as their nurse, it really shows the difference between like the class understanding of finances. And like our financial growth can literally just be our understanding and our knowledge of what is going on and what's attainable.
Yeah. And a lot of people, their downfall to finance and not understanding is because they don't have the conversations, and they're guarded with their discussions. And you know, there's pride that comes with how much money we make or what we have or what we can afford. And, you know, people buy things that they can't afford because they want to make it look like they have a certain level of status. And
this person got upset with me the other day because they were talking to me. They work at this restaurant and they were talking to me about like how great this food is at this restaurant, like using amazing adjectives and so much energy. And after a couple minutes of them talking, I'm like, wow, that would be amazing if you had that same level of determination to talk about something that you own. And then like they just kind of got like, they're like, man, like this is what I love though. And I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, that's awesome, but you're making the owner of this product a lot of money, and it sounds like you're passionate now about their own growth,
which is good.
It kind of is. It kind of is on some entry level stuff.
Somebody has to be at that level, right?
Somebody does.
Not everybody can be the owner. Not everybody can be the leader. I mean, that's just a reality, you know. Even talking to everybody, our audience right now, we would like to inspire everyone to take charge of their life and be a leader and be confident. But not everybody is able to do that, and some people are better at being led. That is some people's role.
Yeah, I believe for a small amount of time that should be your role. But you should. I think you should always have your sights on when are you going to take this over.
I think you should too.
Thing, you know.
I think you should too. But the reality of it is not everybody does. You know,
which is unfortunate because it's like, could it be? You know, if you have a problem with an education system, can you put your sights on creating some charter school, or can you? If you don't like the way food is being served or ingredients are being used, can you just put your sights on making a new product to give people what it is that you believe in?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this is. But at the same time, like, this is mostly just philosophy.
Right. I mean, yeah, you can always create what you want, right? If something's lacking and there's something that you wish was there, you can create it.
Yeah.
That's what people do. That's why we have the things that we have, because somebody wanted it and it didn't exist and they made it.
Yeah. And also, you know, going back to the example of that person who's super passionate about talking about this product that they don't own, a lot of people are already in a low vibration, so they don't necessarily have the energy to even make it compelling to you to want to go try the product that they're talking about. You know what I mean? So if you've gotten yourself to that point where you're able to just hype up something to persuade me to believe that now I want it, it makes me think that you have that skill, so you need to hone that skill and not just use it.
That would be ideal.
It would be ideal. It would be difficult. But what else are we doing here? You know, you might as well, it's like a Monopoly board. You might as well try to build up
but you got to think of it too. Like, there's really no right or wrong way to be enthusiastic, right?
Well,
so
I don't believe that.
No?
No, because
what's the wrong way of being enthusiastic?
Bro, like the house slave type vibe. It's like when you're enthusiastic about a system that's really to the detriment of you viewing your people. You know what I'm saying? Because I think you can become enthusiastic when you've gotten to a level of comfortability, but you don't understand that if you break out of that comfortability, then you and more people can have a higher level of experience.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
but we think that everyone should have an idea of unity and doing things for the community, but there is a level of individualism and people have to look out for themselves too, and really that has to happen first before somebody can even worry about trying to help other people, right? And some people aren't ever able to get past that point of making themselves okay so that they can help other people. And again, that's our belief that people should be helpful and have this level of respect for each other and, help develop the world and the community and be a contributing person in society. But not everybody's going to do that. And that's okay because there's not a right or wrong way to live your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people, we know people that are like straight solo, like just go through life, do their thing, and they might not be contributing in the way that we expect, but they're still good.
Yeah.
They're good people, and they're doing good for themselves, and they're not doing bad.
Yeah, that's true. It's very tough, like sensitive subject because you can think back to the history of like Nazi Germany, right? So there was a lot of people in that society that weren't necessarily bad people, but they were just being followers in their community.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they were at a level of comfortability and what felt like a normal life, but their buying into that system was actually detrimental to a lot of people around them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
yeah.
It can be difficult because it's like sometimes when we see people that are just depressed and sad, we're like, hey, we want you to get to a point where you are just comfortable with your life. But then you need to reckon and process with, are you contributing to something that is helping?
Yeah.
Or are you contributing to something that's kind of hurting a lot of people?
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. But some people find that drive and that guidance in different ways. Some people need to be guided a little more directly in their endeavors. And sometimes it takes a good leader for people.
True.
And, as long as you're being led by the right forces, it's okay to be a follower sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I said, our belief, I don't think people should be followers. I think you should draw your own conclusions, think for yourself, have people that you look up to and have mentors. And it's good to have guidance, but I think everybody should, hold their own leash at the end of the day.
Yeah, I believe that. And recognize that you're not the all powerful. You know what I mean? You're here representing the all powerful, but it's not ending with you.
Yeah.
Right. And that can be very confusing. That's why in the past, the ancient African cultures, like these pharaohs were supposed to just represent the creator. And when they didn't, it became that their ego took over and then they had problems and they had to get them up out of there.
Yep.
Now you move on to like newer forms of monarchies and things. These people developed egos like they were the all powerful, and it can only lead to detriment if you believe that you're the all powerful. So it's true. It's like you want to hold your own leash, but you want to recognize that it doesn't end with you, and then there's something greater and more. More powerful.
Yep. That's very important. And you'll see that being consistent across public figures, at least what they portray, even in politics, there's never been failure of high-level politicians referring to God.
Yeah.
And high-level athletes referring to God. And so there's a lot of power in that, at least in that belief system, of there being a higher power, but having that connection with God and that level of spirituality and being able to believe in yourself because you know that you're an extension of His creation. There's a lot to value in that understanding, and a lot of people aren't able to develop that because they're not open to the idea of a higher power.
Yeah, and to submit.
And to
Like
submit.
to be able to take your ego out of the way and submit fully is very difficult, because it's like, yo, I just tried to develop this confidence. I got to this level where I finally believe in myself, and now you're telling me I kind of have to diminish myself to submit to something that's greater than
Yeah,
me.
and we talk about living in the fear of God, but really we're living in the love of God, and He's supporting us, and He's giving us opportunity and tools to do what we want, and we have free will, and that shouldn't be something that we're fearful of. As long as we're doing what we believe is the right thing, it's gonna be beneficial for us in the end, and it's a blessing for us to be able to operate in the way that God has allowed us to.
For sure. And we've been kind of talking a little bit about pain and darkness. I would challenge people to kind of reconstruct how you think about pain. Going back to the Bible, New Testament, the story of Jesus, he is sacrificed in some of the most ultimate pain, right? Being crucified is one of the most painful things that you could go through. And it's supposed to be a story of that intense pain also unlocks the intense light. It's one and the same. Frankie Beverly and Mays, joy and pain, they're both one and the same. And if you can flip your perspective on what that pain is, it ends up being a door. It ends up being like a passage into your light and into your like greater growth.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I had a patient not too long ago. She was like refusing her pain medications after she had a surgery. And she came from a military family. And she was like, my brother always said, pain is weakness leaving the body. And I'm like, okay, I get that. There's emotional pain, there's mental pain, there's physical pain. There's a time and place for all of those things where they're necessary and you have to go through it. But there's also a time and place where we need to diminish the level of pain. We can only handle so much pain. And in her case, in a surgical standpoint, like experiencing that pain is not going to allow you to heal properly.
Right.
So there has to be a balance between everything,
Definitely.
right? Some people that aren't able to process their emotional pain properly inflict physical pain. Right. So being able to overcome that pain is a very powerful thing to be able to do. And it's necessary to be able to do that and to do it multiple times throughout your life, because we are going to go through painful situations, whether we like it or not.
For sure.
And that's something that nobody wants to do, but we need to be prepared to do.
Yeah, 100%. And you have the opportunity, because I like to bring pain into my life in controlled ways. Like if I go do a super difficult chest and bicep workout, I'm going to leave sore, but I'm not going to leave injured. So it's like I got the right pain.
Yeah, no, and it's funny you say that, because some people don't know the difference between being sore and feeling the discomfort of working out versus pain. And I've worked with clients in the past where really they're feeling pain, and you shouldn't feel pain when you exercise. If it's a painful movement, then we need to make a modification or do some type of rehabilitation to fix imbalances, or maybe you need a surgical intervention or something if it's that bad. But you should not be feeling excruciating pain when you perform exercises. But you should be working to a level of discomfort that's going to allow you to grow, because growth comes with discomfort in any situation, whether it's figurative mental growth or a physical growth standpoint. And developing your cardiovascular health and your muscular endurance and your strength is vital to being healthy and surviving. A lot of people think that exercise is done in vain. It's like it's all superficial and wanting to look good, but really, once you age, if you're not exercising, you're gonna be the lady on the commercial that's talking about I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah,
like that's basic strength, being able to do a push-up, stand up, do a squat, get off the ground. Like those are things that later in life are going to be so beneficial for you to develop now and continue to do just so you can survive.
Yep, because atrophy is a real phenomenon, right? Atrophy is real.
And atrophy happens to your brain as well. So that's why we say you have to exercise your brain just as you exercise your body.
Yep.
You talk about having a leg day and an arm day and a shoulder day. This right here is my brain day, right?
Yeah.
So I'm exercising my brain because we want our knowledge to grow, and you want your brain and your mind to be as strong as possible for as long as possible. And that comes with a conscious effort. It comes with reading and having discussions and understanding people and having an open mind and allowing your brain to grow. Because if you have a closed mind, there's not room for growth, right? You have to open it up. And that's the same thing with your body and your muscles. You have to stretch to promote the growth, because if everything's tight and closed in, then it's not going to be able to expand and grow.
Exactly. And we talk about, or I was saying about using pain as kind of the passage into your greater self. You know, I have this conversation with some of these students that have made choices that put them in a, you know, different population or different area. And I'll tell them, like, hey, you actually have a beautiful opportunity here, because the illusion that things are always supposed to go right and that you're supposed to show your family and friends that you're only doing better has now been broken for you. People already think you messed up. And that's a beautiful place to be in, because now you don't need, because I tell them what happens is that most people are going to be 35, 40 years old, and they're going to have a midlife crisis, because they're going to realize that this illusion they've tried to uphold is now shattered. People now see them for their true human self, and they're fallible, they're not perfect. You got it broken at 12. Now you can go ahead and start building in reality, because you don't have to try to uphold this ego or this illusion that everything is great and you're only making good choices.
Yeah, that's why, you know, a lot of the people that I look up to and listen to that are considered like gurus of whatever sector they're an expert in, they've oftentimes had difficult childhoods, and or they've overcome some level of adversity early in life that gave them a higher level of understanding as to what life is and how precious life is, and also what they're capable of. And then so those people were able to use that early trauma to learn and grow from it and process it in a way that kind of motivated them to do great things.
Yeah.
And, you know, we grew up very blessed. You know, it wasn't like we had a silver spoon, but at the same time, we were in a pretty good environment while we were growing up. And I didn't experience all that much failure up until I got to college. And it took me making mistakes and going through some adversity and, you know, losing both of my grandpas around the same time, and experiencing grief and loss and pain, and, you know, seeing the harder side of life to really have a good appreciation and understanding, and be able to truly utilize the tools and gifts that God has given me, and be confident in the way that I operate. All of that was developed after the difficult things happened. Yeah. So the pain is necessary, you know. I've always had a level of confidence, but it was almost fake before I went through the adversity. Like I had this false sense of security, and I felt like almost invincible. But then you realize, you go through this phase, you realize you're not invincible. Like bad things can happen to you. Bad things will happen to you. But that's what really makes you strong.
Exactly.
Being able to go through those bad things and still knowing after you go through those dips that you can build back up that confidence and continue to grow and compound upon your experiences, and not make those same mistakes over and over again.
Straight up. And for me, now that I understand that process and that phenomena, I try to bring more of that pain and misunderstanding. Like, for example, later on today, I'm going to go officiate a college basketball game. And during the national anthem, that's, you know, throughout my life, I've played basketball since I was 5 years old. So national anthems have become a ritual experience. Hearing that tone, and it's always been paired with me with high emotions. It could be a huge crowd there when I was playing, or a huge crowd there now I'm officiating. And it's like that this is about to begin moment. My mom told me when I was little that before games, if I just pray to do my best, I'm going to be a good basketball player. That was her first thing to me. Now, before games, as I officiate, I pray that everyone who's participating gets exposed for what they have not practiced or what they don't know. That can be a scary thing to ask for because you don't know what you might find yourself in. You might find yourself in a very difficult situation, but you gather the film, you go back and you study, you go figure out why you were in an uncomfortable situation, and then you become great. If I before the game prayed that, oh my gosh, don't let anything happen that I can't handle, I'm going to be mediocre my whole career.
Yeah.
And I pray for the kids too. Hey, the shooting guard right here, if he doesn't remember his play, I hope he needs to go to that play to win the game and watch himself mess up on film later on. Like, I want to fail as drastically as possible so we can all get to these levels that we want to be at.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because it takes a level of vulnerability to share what you pray for. You know, a lot of people's prayers are very private, and I pray before I go to work. During the pandemic, I started praying a lot before I went to work, but I was praying for the wrong things. I was praying that nothing happened. I was praying that it'd be like a very quiet day and tiptoeing around, stuff like that. Now I pray for the confidence and the competence and the level-headedness that I need to be able to perform in the situations that are inevitable. Like the environment I work in, things are going to happen, and it took me a while to accept that. I started working in ICU in a very difficult time, and I don't think I understood that I was going to see so much death and pain and grief. And then so it was a steep learning curve in how to process those things. And that came a lot through my prayer, and being able to now pray for the ability to handle those situations rather than praying that those situations don't happen has given me more of that internal locus of control that we continue to mention, and feeling that regardless of what's going on around me, God's going to be within me and allow me to perform and be able to get through that situation. In my job, 12-hour shifts are long, but during the pandemic, at the peak of it, I would have days where I felt like I was just trapped in the hospital. Like I had been there for like 5 days, but it had been like 10 hours. And being able to really be confident in my ability to get out of whatever I'm going through has allowed those days to go by a lot faster, me being able to process things in a healthier way. So I do invite everyone listening to this to rewire how they think about their job, because a lot of people feel that way, like their job is just this long, monotonous, dreadful task that they have to get through every day. Yeah. But look at the beauty of the situation and see what you're gaining from that environment that you're in, and really appreciate the development that your current situation is offering you. I deal with a lot of stuff that is not desirable, but I do know that those things are developing me into the man that I am today, and I'm very appreciative for that. And those are lessons and tools that I'll carry on to use in many different ways, but it's all happening for a reason.
For sure. Mila just woke up, you know what I mean? Yeah. She needed you to go through those tough situations. She needs to make sure her dad's soft spots have been tested so they turn into all armor. And then you're going to pass her off a tablet. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And it's a beautiful process. That's how we combat feeling like life is meaningless. You know what I mean? Like, we recognize that we're developing philosophies to just have generations and generations be strong. I'm very thankful for my ancestors, but now I feel like I'm my ancestor. I'm here. I'm understanding of my position, and I have respect and gratitude for that.
And if you see the complexity of what's going on here, down to the cellular level, up to us being able to have these interactions and these realizations and this level of growth, even as time goes on and our bodies start to deteriorate, we know that we're going to continue to grow our minds. There's a direct correlation between having these type of conversations and reading books and doing stimulating activities and brain atrophy. It combats the atrophy aspect of the brain that is inevitable of happening to the body. You don't have to let your mind atrophy. There are physical factors that we can't prevent that will cause you to deteriorate in certain ways, but there are very, very sharp 100-year-olds in this world.
Yeah.
And there are very, very mentally diminished 40-year-olds in this world, 20-year-olds in this world. You talk about, again, what we put into our bodies. The destruction with alcohol is, it should be very scary to everyone. We have a diagnosis in the hospital. It's called toxic metabolic encephalopathy. Encephalopathy is just the inflammation of the brain. When you drink alcohol, you are in a state of encephalopathy, no matter what. There's different levels. It's on a spectrum, just like everything else we discuss. But if you're mildly intoxicated, there is a increased level of inflammation within your body, and it's not going to allow you to think as straight as you would and generate the thoughts and emotions that you would if you did not have that level of inflammation. And there's a lot of things that we put into our body that increase inflammation that we're not even aware of. So once we do things that are healthy for ourselves, like exercise and hydrate and eat alkaline foods and increase the nutrients we put into ourselves and get sunlight, decreasing that inflammation mentally, spiritually, and physically allows us to grow and not have to experience so much discomfort in those areas.
100%. You know, free will is very real. And you're in a field now where your free will is going to create the life that you live. It is what it is. I think it's a gift. Some people feel like it's a curse.
Yeah, no, they say with great power comes great responsibility. The longer you survive in this world, the more opportunities you are given, the more options you have. A lot of us want that to be narrowed. We're like, oh, I wish somebody would tell me what to. I used to say that. I wish somebody would just tell me what I had to do. I have all these blessings. What am I going to do with these blessings? It's so overwhelming, right? We have all the opportunity at the tip of our fingers. We just have to choose a path to walk along. And if you need to hop off that path and go on another one, that's okay. But if you never start walking, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You got to go somewhere. So it's just about making decisions and being consistent. And after you do that, you'll have failures. You'll find out what you do and don't like. You'll have successes and you'll have failures again. But that's how life works. And that's what's going to foster the growth.
100%. What are you going to do with your blessings? Thanks for tuning in today to R&B. I had a great time, Blake, talking with you. I feel the love in this room, and I'm excited to go attack my day now because we got plenty of sunlight left to be great out here.
Rhythm and blessings. Thank you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that. One love. Stay blessed.
Peace.
Peace.